Hi, so today's a little different. I get to interview you. So, for everyone watching this interview, I'm Crystal Davis from Extreme Excellence World Records, and we have the extreme pleasure of adjudicating this incredible hashtag CEO World Record, who is being run by Laura Gerrits from the Holistic Enterprise. And I get to interview you today. Normally you're doing the interviewing, but I'm going to interview you today. So this is a little different. So why don't you introduce yourself and your, what's that?
Yeah, that is so good to be interviewed, you know. So
Yeah,
it's far easier always too.
You're asking the questions and now I get to ask you.
Okay, so about us and who we are, what we represent. So I am a mother, a dog lover, a nature lover, first of all, and a rebel. And together with my team, the Holistic Enterprise, and our incredible clients and partners, we are literally rewriting the history of command and control. Not only in this world record, but as well in the past and with our work today. So, meaning that what we're aiming for, it is to open up the business to kind of see the biggest audacious impact, and so they can melt the boundaries and work like in oneness with humanity, planet, their clients, their families. So literally an open living system as such. So that's who we are and that's what we do.
We love that. We're so excited that you chose us to do this world record with, because what you're doing in the world is so fascinating in terms of moving the world's most highest leverage leaders into a space where they're leading with humanity. So one of the things that I find really interesting, and at the end of this interview, we'll get to the big world record question. That'll be the last thing I ask you. First, I want to just dive into, so people understand more about the work it is that you actually do and what does that mean. So when you talk about, when people go to your website, they'll see you talk about working beyond hierarchy. And in our conversations, I've heard you and your team use the very interesting phrase, leadership without the ego crown. So can you talk to me a little bit about what is an ego crown in leadership, and how does that negatively affect the way humanity progresses in a business sense?
All right. I love the question. I think I could talk for hours about that. I do believe that all the leadership starts from each of us. Whatever we are, entrepreneurs, hired, employed, CEOs by trusted boards, or like literally big business owners. But it starts from the way we define our identity and the way we get attached to that identity. And I would say that through life, we all have crowns, and that's in a way the beauty of that once we are in the midst of shifting our identity or expanding our identity, going from something we defined ourselves as, let's say, and moving to something bigger or becoming bigger, overcoming our fears, then that, crown is kind of, it's not there, right? Because we are more vulnerable, we are more conscious, we are more feeling like ourselves and more anchored to our inner purpose, I would say. So yeah, and there are moments, especially when we, see from, let's say, personality inside out to mirror to the business, or it can be NGO as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be a profit-based company. Depending on the identity the leader carries, you can like literally see that mirrored in their business rituals, in the way of thinking, in their decision making, in their, in them playing big or small, in their results. So So it's kind of linked together. So this is why it is holistic. And when we get too attached to our identity as such, as leaders, get too, in a way, I would still call it arrogant in a wrong way, then fear kicks in. Because we get so, like, in a comfort zone in a way, being who we are, being proud who we became. And all of us, we are like experts and leaders in our fields with multiple MBAs and, like 20 plus and even more years of experience. But at the same time, with our work and what I immensely try to as well be aware within myself, that I am constantly aware of when I am placing that ego crown. And there are moments we have to. There are moments, definitely. And there are moments where, that I choose, like, deliberately to take that off and kind of discover myself as newly and open my mind newly so I can take that, my company or our impact further. So yeah, that's how I see that. And definitely when we get too fixed on our identity, fear kicks in, and naturally then, from the, we are like protecting everything, right? And then when we overprotect, we overthink in the places where we don't have to think. Because like literally there are people and clients and teams that think on behalf of you. So yeah, and then, all the organizational diseases, they literally from inside out are being outpoured, to the company. And it can be many different things. It can be the lack of purpose, the lack of feeling that people belong to something far bigger, fear to do mistakes, fear to do experimenting, not listening, not hearing. And then, focusing on this kind of deadline after deadline and not even having the space to think, is that still intentional? Is that driven by our impact? Is that aligned? And the worst kind of, the worst maybe toxic thing that a crown does, it is that it pours the lies into the company and everybody starts lying. So that's where I am saying, no, we just have to, put the light on ourselves sometimes and then, and acknowledge that, we do lie, when we want, big profits and we want to, we have fear to be rejected in a world and those type of things, but kind of being, aware about that, it makes the difference. And then all the kind of the boundaries, I would say, are melting down because suddenly we are leading from the heart and maybe even from that energy where our body is hooked to that energy of the future vision and having this really open mindset that creates actually new skills, and you never even doubt about anything, just keep on experimenting and going there. Yeah, so I guess that's
I love that. There's so many interesting things that you said in that part, that whole thing. And so I think if the first thing that really stands out to me is where you mentioned you can be a for-profit or a non-for-profit and still be intentional. They're not mutually exclusive situations. And I know that something exciting today is that Naveen Jain has just signed on as a part of this project, and some other really huge billionaire, massive, influential people are already a part of this project, which is extremely exciting. And I know that Naveen Jain particularly talks about this in his interviews as well, is that a for-profit company doesn't mean that it's without heart and without intentionalism. And I think another interesting part of this is, so it's irrelevant what type of company, what level you're running the company at, what sort of profit the company has. The intentionality is and has to be the heart of it if we want to further the capacity of humanity to do good. And one of the things that your team and your company talk about, which we were so attracted to in working with you to support you with this world record and to be able to adjudicate this world record is that you talk a lot about moving well beyond that ego and into dissolving silos so that people in the company have autonomy and they have leadership and they take responsibility then. And I know we can't name names, but you have worked with some of the world's biggest companies that most people would think are unsalvageable in terms of a control mechanism, right? And that it's control, top-down control, systemized in a way that is based around control, which creates a toxic workplace and a toxic system, which then has direct outcomes, negative outcomes on the entirety of humanity. Some of the companies that you've worked with directly impact entire populations. So you're supporting blue and yellow Ukraine in this world record. Yes,
we do.
So that's really interesting. So one of the aspects of an extreme excellence world record that is different to other world record companies is we require a charity component. And Laura and her team have chosen Blue Yellow Ukraine, who are supporting, they provide non-lethal supplies to the front line of Ukrainian resistance right now. And I think what's interesting is war is a very visible and extreme outcome of a control mindset.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So the fact that you've chosen blue and yellow Ukraine and that you're talking about control mindsets, what I want to ask you is, what is the overall benefit for humanity, if you could say it in a sentence, of the world's most influential leaders choosing to move past their ego and move into vulnerability and dissolve their company into a space that is beyond hierarchy? What are the directly positive effects on the whole of humanity when they do that, the type of work you're talking about?
I would say that it is the creation of a positive impact in all the multiple aspects, whatever aspect the company choose. It can be several, but it is a net positive, and like really understanding in a systemic way when they make the decision to move beyond fear, to move beyond that rigid control, and like instead of I, see we, then yeah, there is no other choice. It's only towards the positive. And it can be many, many things. I mean, ending the war, not even starting the war, right? And always thinking we instead of I. That's like, in a sentence as the core concept. Yeah, Crystal, I believe so.
I love it. Okay, so we've talked about Naveen Jain is on board. You've got a whole bunch of really interesting people. So the world record itself is, do you want to tell us the title of the world record itself that you're going for? And then we'll talk about some of the people you hope will get on board. And let's have a little talk about why we want to bring those people on board. So what's the world record you're attempting?
Okay, so we are attempting the hashtag CEO world record. That's for the hashtag. And the aim of that is to get 50 plus countries represented by most ethical and impact driven leaders. And it doesn't matter how big eyes, they are or you are, and what religion, what country you represent. So they are answering this one specific question. That sounds, how is the world better off because your company is in it? And when I read that question like a couple of years ago, I thought, wow, I mean, that is like a magical question that totally, like instantly makes you see we instead of I. And I thought if we can raise awareness from, and ask leaders to think about that question and like be conscious around the answer, it already opens up the boundaries. It already shifts and widens their identity to take bigger responsibility in a more free way, not this controllable way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And so you saw the question a few years ago. Where does that question come from originally?
Okay, so it comes from two guys, wonderful guys. So there's the former Unilever CEO, Andrew Winson, and Paul Polman, from the book called And the Entire Movement and the Philosophy, Net Positive Impact. So it's in honor of them.
Yeah, I love it. So let's talk about who you hold, you and your company, who you envisioned being a part of this. Who are some of the companies that you see doing this amazing work in the world that we hope are going to come on board? Everybody,
absolutely. Some of them are already, right? So first of all, it was Naveen Jain was number one, definitely, because I can explain why. Because this is the man whom he impacted my life radically. From getting up like early in the mornings at 4 or 5, watching the sunrise, and like really thinking about how we as a consulting company can solve the root causes rather than work with the consequences. So that's Naveen Jain, definitely. Beetroot, Swedish Ukrainian company, Unilever itself, Canva. And it's absolutely clear why Canva. We have a female positive led impact leader who created
from Perth.
Indeed. So Mind Valley, Singularity University, Whole Foods, and there are like a lot of known names that are driven by impact and that are practicing business practices kind of in a different way, not only a kind of top-down approach and with a lost soul and with a kind of a misaligned purpose. And at the same time, what we really wanted is to invite everyone, even the tiniest solopreneurs who are, they are leading their business kind of based on impact. And at the same time, SMEs and bigger companies that truly want to tap into something far beyond bigger themselves and create and craft and coax that new identity so they can like really I would say be proud and stop playing small and really understand consciously with their leadership teams, with the clients, with the suppliers, that they are here for something far beyond bigger. And this is something what I was experiencing myself as a Lithuanian, living in a small country, right? As a single mother who can't travel a lot, suddenly I was constantly having this in mind, like how can I make sure that I am not getting trapped, and thinking small and becoming small and acting small because of all these surroundings. So the entire world record has as well this other maybe impact, that to release the energy, give people that freedom and responsibility, and literally amplify the vibrations and mindsets. So they dare to step steps forward and really think audaciously big. Because I think when we are like really getting into the mindset of our vision and embodying that vision in our body at all the levels and soul, why not? Something like really miraculous is happening outside. So yeah.
You know what I love is that you mentioned being a single mom in Lithuania, and the seed of this world record has come from there. This little place, single mom in Lithuania, going, how can we think as big as possible? And we find this fascinating from our point of view as in terms of what this is capable of. So when the way we think of world records, it's always an initiator. Most people think that world records is the ultimate level that you can reach in the world. And we think it's the opposite. It's the beginning, right? It's a way that you create a kind of explosive Big Bang moment where you bring the world together in a way that then has an on-flow effect into the future. And we have been deliberately planning that on-flow effect. You and your company have deliberate things that you want this project to do besides just bringing everyone together. And by bringing everyone together, we're talking about many different countries, many different languages, You know, I don't. How many languages do you speak? But you're speaking in second language. You speak
Like
Lithuanian
5.
first. 5
Yeah.
languages. Hello.
Something like
Yeah.
that.
I'm also an immigrant in a foreign country, so I speak several languages. We've got many people who are going to be speaking in their native languages in the documentary that we produce about this world record. So that's already fascinating, that you are gathering all of these incredible leaders, leveraging different lenses in terms of cultural views, geographical location, and different mindsets. And then you're collating those via this world record. And you have further to take that. So do you want to talk about what you're going to do with that information? What are you going to do with all this amazing data that you are gathering from all over the world?
All right, so it's gonna be a journey, the one which is aimed to rewrite the history of command and control and traditional kind of hierarchies. So with all that data, what we're gonna do it is curate the entire world tour, where we're gonna travel to each of the participants' company if they would want us to do that, and invite others who participated and beyond. And we will study these companies together and come up, like, first of all, get out of our own bias and stop kind of, being in our way of growth. Getting all these other industries in to specific other type of company, and like really studying that and applying new or disrupting and coming up with new business rituals from the expanded identity. Then we're gonna kind of create the case studies of how it was before, definitely, and how it's after. And all of these case studies hopefully are gonna land in the books, I would say, in the books of the people who are not yet going to the universities, but like in like literally schools already for, elementary schools. And because this is where already entrepreneurship should start, in my opinion, and the leadership, that inner leadership of understanding how many big, audacious things we as creators can make it happen, in the world. So that's the whole idea. And of course, the book itself, it's gonna come, and it's probably gonna come.
Yeah, there's a documentary, there's a book, but essentially what you're doing is creating the world's most powerful data collection on multi-lensed view of leveraging leadership for the positive future of humanity. So it's a big deal, guys. Like, starting with the world.
You know what? It's a longitudinal studies, because when I've been writing my dissertation and when Wilma, she was finishing her PhD, we had like for 7 years, all the discussions, like, was it worth it? Because it's such a solo work. You sit and you drill down into something that is already created, that is already here, that's so much in the past, right? And then it's like you can't share that knowledge with everyone else. And then your impact, in a way, you do the work and you do the profound work and you gain a lot of knowledge yourself as a human, but where is we? And this is where me and Vilma, we thought, is there another way to take those 10 or 50 years of our work and kind of, try to understand how we can overcome that time, or squeeze the time and or ignore the time and come up with something audaciously big to make our new kind of research based not on the traditional scientific ways but on a more disruptive ways. And this is how we found you, Crystal, and seeing what you are doing. We thought this is the answer.
The disruptive part is really interesting, because obviously there's a focus in this world record on entrepreneurship, but it's a very wide cross-section of entrepreneurship. You have even, obviously you have people at the top end of entrepreneurship like Naveen Jain, who is talking about moon resources and working in space, also biome, so they're working on microbial bacteria and helping to find ways to prevent incurable disease and these kind of really big thinking things. But then you also have local Lithuanian pet food companies that are very heart and soul based. You have Stansi Fabriken, who's another sponsor. So Kika is the pet food company, Stansi Fabriken, who are a manufacturing company. You have Sunday, who are a food production company. And then you have all of these other different kinds of people in between. But what they all have in common is this interest in dissolving that hierarchy so that the leadership of that company, regardless of the size, is actually impactful in a humanitarian and globally beneficial way. So I feel like the data you're collecting, we don't even know how big this is going to be, but you're planning to make it as big as possible and take it as far as you possibly can. So I'm going to ask you two last questions. The first one is going to be the one you get to interview everybody all the time, Laura, which is, so now we're talking about something enormous. This is a world first. This is a world record. You're including people, some people who everybody's heard of and some people who nobody's heard of, and cross-pollinating those audiences so everybody will hear about this project. It's enormous. This world record is absolutely beyond what anybody's ever done before, ever, in terms of this type of depth of research about ethical and impact-driven leadership. So it's already massive. You're already running a company that does that type of work. So how do you as a leader what rituals do you and your company have to remain centered to the heart and the soul of your company as you grow in this kind of really explosive way?
Love the question. Okay. So I believe the one which is like truly significant and helps us to work not only remotely, like within the team, but as well with our clients, because we are becoming a part of the team with our clients. It is to change the way we look at the deadlines and go from being deadline aligned, go kind of moving towards impact aligned. Is that intentional with what we are aiming for at the biggest level? And then, then the deadline loses the momentum, because you suddenly realize that it's just not important, like at all. And I'm speaking about millions of euros, even, projects, from construction to new product lines. And even, we know all the methods, managing those really complex dynamic projects. But every time going back to it, like with our team and clients, and asking, how is that like intentional and how is that aligned with what we want to do? That what gives us this shift in identity and really the depth, rather than, the doing for the doing's sake. And the beauty of that is that we realize always that less tasks needs to be performed. More time is there to really do the qualitative, profound work, which is intentional. And the way we feel inside, it's like liberating, because we are not lying to ourselves based on fear that suddenly, we've done this project in a Gantt chart, whatever, we said this, we said that. Yes, we did, but it was like yesterday. Today is a different story because we are different. So that type of planning and constantly like intentionally reflecting and being open-minded that it's not about the deadline. It's about being aligned with your biggest audacious impact, and like really having the bravery to stop 50 people even in the room and say, come on, guys, I see that it's on the 5th of May, but like, is that aligned with where we want to go? And then you have silence. And then you have, completely melting the boundaries and understanding of how the entire project or the entire execution should be done in a more holistic way rather than again top-down linear way. So that's the ritual.
I love that. I find that so fascinating because I'm a qualified project manager as well. And we find the same thing in our company. There's a very big difference between being task-oriented and purpose-oriented. And it comes from the leadership. Project management can be handled in a way that is purpose-driven, or it can be handled in a way that is process-driven. So what I'm hearing you say is that when you or your leadership team that you're working with, your leadership team, when you're aligned to the purpose, that's non-negotiable. That's a non-negotiable outcome, that the purpose is always maintained. Anything around that is flexible and needs to be flexible to maintain the sense of purpose. And I think that's a very different way of thinking to what we see in the corporate structure, which is we said we would do it on this day, so we do it on that day, hell or high water. I think that's a very powerful ritual to maintain, and probably the hardest one to maintain, because do you see in your work and with your clients a sense of, as they grow, a tendency, because of the industrialized kind of structure of business, how it's been in the past, a tendency to lean back on structure or lean back on process and task-driven stuff, and letting go of the purpose because of the pressure of leadership as you grow?
Always. It happens every day. I even know that it happens with me, basically, at least a couple of times a week, depending on the complexity you are entering in the organization, right? And the promises you have given. But there is another ritual that really helps to instantly become aware that you are putting that crown back. And that crown it's coming from fear. It is the ritual that we just call it holistic business discipline, or the space where the team can, it's in your calendar. It's very linear. It's like, amen, whatever happens, I have to be there to do the reflection. Because if that space is not in there, then normally, everyone will be scattered around doing their job. Nobody will be gathering. We will not have the space to simply be silent, stand still, and just go back and to our anchorness and really ask those questions about the purpose or the impact. So that is the ritual that allows me and our clients to have the space to check in, do we have a crown here? How do we react to the things that are changing and constantly changing, and even the mood, of people? Because some people are, just rushing through the door and they are in this, still writing 1,000 emails or doing other type of jobs. So it's important to have the silent space to download from yourself everything you've been experiencing, and at the same time, be this clean sheet of paper and let yourself discover something new by asking the same question. How is that still intentional? Is there anything we want to change? Do we still need that? Let's check. Maybe our intention has changed. Maybe we don't need that anymore. And that is that is a brave question always. And in many cases you realize you don't even need that anymore.
So by staying the purpose being kind of the North Star, you remain committed to evolution instead of remaining where you said you were going to be, because as you start growing, you see different things and you understand different things. So I love that. I love that about your company, and you do it so well. And that's why you're the best at this. And that's why you're leading this world record. So, and bringing together all these absolutely fabulous people together in the world's most powerful network. So let's do it. Let's do the question, Laura. All right.
Let's do it.
The official CEO World Record question. How is the world better off because your company is in it?
All right. Yeah. Okay. So it's better in a way that we are tapping into one human being's purest version of who she or he was at the moment when the decision to build the company was made. And then we anchor the impact to that purest version of that person, and we just amplify it to something far beyond bigger that is completely blowing his identity, the way the culture formed him, the way the education formed him or her, and amplifying literally the business as such for the net positive impact. That is one of the parts. And another part is that creating those rituals, thinking rituals, and execution rituals, or fulfillment rituals that allow people within the company to stay anchored to that biggest audacious impact. I think, Crystal, so I've lost you.
I'm here. And we're so excited to see what you do with this world record. We're so excited to see who you're bringing together. And you certainly are definitely, the perfect people to be leading this type of project with what you just said. You are literally working with the people in the world who have the most leverage, which is the people with the big ideas, and making sure that they maintain those big ideas at the truest essence by going back, even if it's become something else now. And I feel like what you're doing here, we're so excited to see your world record attempt and to see how that comes together and to be the people adjudicating it. It's a real honor for us. And it was fun to interview you today when I'm watching all your amazing interviews, Laura. So thank you.